We're live.
Hello.
We're live.
All right. What? Perfect. Hello, everybody. I'm live with one of my oldest friends. I mean that both in terms of how long we've been friends and his age. I'm here with Chris Cannon, who runs Best of Substack. And I apologize in the title of the live. It's at Best of Substack, but it's actually at Best of Sub. Is the shorthand for it. I apologize. I'm also here with my dog as a Daubert.
But you're really
Anyway,
starting shameful, aren't you? Starting shameful.
I am starting shameful. No, he was going to be on my lap regardless because he was being annoying if I don't put him on my lap. That's what he does. So anyway, I wanted to welcome everybody. I have, now been on Substack probably about 6 months or so. I love the community here. And I think what Chris is doing is really cool. This kind of, created this environment where he can showcase various creators, whether they're big or small. Chris, what made you decide to do that?
I'm interviewing you. This is going to be happening the whole time. Fight for control of the conversation. So this is it's gonna be like this the whole time. Thanks for the question.
It's yours.
That's a great question, Steve. Shut up. So I'm live videos are new to me on Substack. I'm learning the platform as I go. Steve's been on longer than I have. But like you said, I really love creators, and I really love digging through places where people can actually just voice themselves without having to go through a lot of mediation. And Substack's fantastic for that. So I really enjoy. I started by a Substack called Communication Breakdown, which is a lot about rhetoric and disinformation and such, because that's my ballywick. But then there's so much great content out there, and not a lot of people sharing other people's content. And so I started Best of Substack to do exactly that, to find great content and put it out there. Because I grew up on things like Reader's Digest and Nutty Reader and Harper's and collections, compendiums, and I love to celebrate the creator and find the great stuff out there. So this is supposed to be an interview with Best of Substack with Steve Hofstetter. So we've had our mutual introductions, and now I'm going to take control. I'm using my Jedi mind trick here. I'm going to take control. We are live on Best of Substack with comedian and professional provoker Steve Hofstetter. And like Steve said, caveat, full disclosure, this is the first time I've done a video where I'm interviewing someone that I actually know. Usually Best of Substack, I interview really interesting creators out there. And I happen to have included one of Steve's posts in the past. And so I always try to reach out to creators that I've included and follow up with them. Steve's the first one that I actually know in the real human world. We went to college together. We worked on various writing projects over the years. He's one of my best friends. And of course, I go see a show in Vancouver whenever he deems to grace us with his royal presence. So by way of intro for Steve, Steve spent the last 25 years working every corner of the comedy world. He's done clubs, television, film, probably a street corner or two. And he's developed a massive following across all online platforms, a really large presence in just about every app you can name. And I really envy him for that, for his ability to do that. Currently, he's 99 on Substack in comedy, and so it leads into my first question. My first two questions. Number one, Steve, only 99, and number two, when are you going to release the Epstein files?
Well, the first answer is I was number one when I first got on Substack. I went all the way to the top. But it's fads. That's what happens, and so much of their ranking system is how fast you're growing. And so when I first signed on, of course, I'm going to grow faster than, already existing on the platform, because I brought a bunch of people from my Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and Threads and all these other places that I am. When I'm going to release the Epstein files, unfortunately, they have not confirmed me in Congress yet, so I don't get to cast a vote, which is something that they're very much doing. It is so wild to me that there are people being like, well, why didn't they release them during Biden's term? I'm like, well, they were sealed until last year. You understand that, right? And they're like, we don't understand anything. So, unfortunately, they have not been released yet, but I'll still keep pestering. One of my most popular posts, I wrote, I said, he's a pedophile. He's such a pedophile that I don't even have to say who he is, and everyone here knows who I'm talking about. And it was amazing to watch people being like, I can't believe you'd say that about Trump. And I was like, aha. See? There it is. See? So, yes. I try.
So your brand of comedy is pretty confrontational. And I only mean that in the most disrespectful sense.
How dare you?
But you're really good. You've really built a brand on standing up stupidity and hypocrisy, which is great. I wish I had the balls you have to perform live in front of people. I'm a behind the scenes kind of guy. I like doing the writing, right? But we do the same thing. We stand up to stupidity and hypocrisy. That's our job. So tell me how that has developed over the 2+ decades that you've been doing this, and what's different today about confrontation than when you started, like really like 25 years ago.
Oh, okay. There's a lot. There's a lot in that question. I also realized I just yelled at you, and I'm in a hotel, so the person in the room next to me is probably very confused. Like that couple's fighting, but I only hear one guy. So I think it was, it started out as just being, I don't like to suffer fools. I joke around that my brand is "fuck you, Karen." And it's basically the idea that, like, I won't stand for it. I will stand up for what I believe in, but I won't stand for willful ignorance, celebrated stupidity. And so that's something that I've always just kind of done. I never sought to be confrontational. I just have no problem confronting the ignorance. Now that the ignorance has been elected, it's a little different. And it's something where, like, I've always been political. I was outspokenly political when you knew me in college. I mean, it was something that I've always been doing. And when people say, "Oh, I liked your stuff before you were political," I'm like, "When did you like me? When I was 9?" Because actually, that's on brand for your politics. But I I think that it becomes more and more important to speak out the more that's at stake. And I would love to go back to the silliness. I miss the silliness. I miss when I could just see a bird walking out of the way of a car and make fun of that because that's silly that a bird that can fly is like, I'm just gonna go.
What's the
And
deal?
that's
Walking birds.
exactly. I wanna, who are these birds and why don't they fly? Like, I want to be able to do that again, but I can't right now because it's possible that it's the last time we can do stand-up comedy. So, and that is not, I'm not saying that to be hyperbolic. I'm saying that because we are watching in real time as the government decides what they deem to be appropriate for public consumption.
Yeah, so perfect transition into that, into censorship. Comedians are facing more censorship than in the 25 years that you and I have both been writing comedy.
Yeah.
And some comedians are frankly caving. Others are standing up and paying the price. Some of them are paying the price and they're doing it so well that it's actually working out well for them. With Jimmy Kimmel not backing down, and then Sinclair and Nick Star caving in, and his show getting 4 times the viewership than it got before. So it really
Yeah.
shows power of comedy and satire in calling out the idiocy and hypocrisy. Um, so, what is the role of the comedian in times of extreme censorship like that? And what can the normals out there do to help make sure we maintain a culture of open dialogue?
That is an excellent question.
Uh,
And
Steve, you're not the only one good.
one thing that I really want to point out about what's happening with Kimmel is the right is trying to take anything they can as a victory, where they're like, "Oh, he's had a 65% drop in ratings since he came back." I'm like, "Yeah, 2 record highs." Like the idea, yeah, he got over 6 million viewers the day that he came back, and now that he's down to 2 million, oh no, only still the best rating in the time slot. So, they're looking for anything they can to not see this as a loss for them. What is the comedian's role? There's a quote from Bill Hicks, that I absolutely love, which is, "A comedian says, 'Wait a minute,' as the consensus forms." And I think that is absolutely our role. And I mean, there's so much to say on this topic, but the 2 things I really want to point out is, 1, we see how much fraud there is in stand-up with the Riyadh Comedy Festival, with the people who were all about free speech and then willingly signed up to perform for murderous dictators. I was disappointed in like 3 of them. The rest I was like, "Yeah, that's on brand." But uh, the other thing is, for creators, whether you're a stand-up or whether you're a person who just makes videos because they're fun for you, or posts something because it's fun for you. Whatever type of thing you can create, there is such a huge appetite right now for people standing up to this regime. It is good for business. If you are someone who has these ideals and you're afraid that it might hurt your career to make these ideals public, you are both a coward and an idiot, because it is both important for society for us not to stand down. And it's also good for business because a lot of people need those voices right now. There are so many voices on the right who won't shut the hell up. So why shouldn't we have them on the left too?
No, don't hold back, Steve. Tell us what you really think.
I Okay, all right, let's take it again. Take it back to Marx, everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we live in a time of extreme political polarization. Okay, where
Yes.
audiences aren't quite as reachable as they used to be. You used to be able to kind of talk to everybody, and now it's, you're talking one audience, you're talking to another, and really polarized. So it really feels like it's reached a boiling point, and from now to the midterm elections next year, it feels like the whole fate of humanity rests in what's going to happen over the 10 months or so, right?
Yes.
How we get to the midterm elections and what's going to happen there. And comedians going to play an absolute crucial role in that and in calling out the hypocrisy. So it feels like it's reached a boiling point. So what scares you about that level of animosity in our national dialogue? How do you deal with that? And how do you see yourself dealing with that over the next year?
What scares me most is the disinformation, which is part of why I appreciate what you're doing on Substack, because the idea that someone can look at something like these text messages that are allegedly from the Charlie Kirk shooter and believe them to be real. The idea of, like, yes, a 22-year-old gave them every single thing they would ever need in court in a way that no human being outside of law enforcement has ever spoken. Like, in a way that if it was written as dialogue on Law and Order, they would have been like, this is not believable at all. And people believe that to be true. That is terrifying.
Mhm.
In terms of the role that the comedian or the satirist plays, every now and then I will get a message from someone saying that, like, your jokes, had me reconsider my position on something, and that's great. But for the most part, our job is to do two things. One, to give the confidence to the people who agree with us to speak to the people in their family, to show them that Trump's popularity is inflated. It's not real. He has the third lowest approval rating in history at this point of a presidency. Only below him are Richard Nixon and Trump's other term. Those are the only people who have had lower ratings. So one thing that we have as a responsibility is to let people know they're not alone. And the other thing is to give them the ammo that they need in simple talking points to speak to their friends, family, coworkers. When when I'm going at it with someone in my Facebook comment section, I'm not going to change their mind. Absolutely not. But that same dumb argument might be made at a Thanksgiving table. And someone who read it might be able to be like, oh, actually, here are the statistics. Actually, here's where you're wrong.
Mhm.
And that's what our job is.
Now, how do you see yourself in opposition to traditional media? I most of my work is as a journalist. I write a lot. I've done a
Mhm.
lot of war correspondence, written about genocide, all kinds of stuff, and for a lot of major outlets. And I lately have been pillaring headlines from publications I've written for or and deeply respect, the New York Times, CNN, places like that. And I see them really kind of bending like a willow tree in the wind, like just trying to survive, right? And you have these both sides types of headlines. There's one in today with the LDS shooter, the Church of Latter Day Saints, setting fire to the church, running his truck into it, and they've revealed a lot about the attacker, former U.S. Marine, a U.S. Marine, former U.S. Marine sergeant like myself, drove around with big American flags on his truck, a big fuck Biden flag, had Trump signs on his house, and would go around asking like talking shit about LDS and talk, it's just pretty clearly the motivations. And today I'm looking at the headlines of one of the major publications, like authorities seeking a motive for these attacks, and I'm like, there's a real cowardice going on in traditional media, and
Yes.
comedians need to step in and fill the like. How do you do that? How do you set yourself apart from the traditional media? How do you fill in the spaces where they're backing out? And what can comedians do to make? This is one of the great things about Jon Stewart early on that I always loved, that everyone really tuned into, was he wasn't just criticizing government; he was really going after the media. And this is 25 years ago, 30 years ago, when they were a lot more even-handed. So how do you respond to that? How do you respond to the cowardice of traditional media?
Well, I think part of why that they're not sure of the motive is because he didn't write the motive on the fire.
Mhm.
And, apparently now, everyone who is involved in a shooting writes on the bullets. If you're involved in the fire, you have to write it on the flames. I mean, that's all super believable. Um, I think, how do we fill in the blanks of traditional media? We don't back down. We're not afraid to say what's going on. I'm not afraid to call Trump a pedophile because Trump called Trump a pedophile. And so if you're gonna report on this at all, you don't say, you know, alleged, you don't say, like, he said it. He admitted to it. So either he's a liar or he's a pedophile or both. But you cannot think that he is an honest man and he's not a pedophile because he talked about wanting to have sex with teenage girls. He talked about it. So you just have to not be afraid to say that stuff. And you just have to, and I understand that, like, look, if everything goes to hell, oh, they'll be coming for me. But I wouldn't want to live with it anyway. Like at that point, I'm done anyway. Like, why do I need to live through a zombie apocalypse? I always see these disaster movies and people are so, fighting so hard to live through this hellscape. And I'm just like, no, do what you can to prevent the hellscape. And after that, call it a day.
Yeah, well, I'll leave a key under Idaho for you.
I appreciate that.
Um, okay, so not revealing anything new here. You're going to be a father soon.
Yes.
Okay, that I say that. I know you've said it publicly. It's been on your feeds.
I have even now announced it's a girl.
I've heard that.
So yeah, yeah,
See all these little hearts popping up, and I'm like, beep beep. Steve is going to have a
yeah,
girl.
yeah.
Okay, so
But
wait.
not, but
Tell you,
not in the way that Trump has a girl. But go ahead.
oh, dude, oh, Steve,
This is the satirist job.
why, Steve? Why? Okay, so now I have two little boys.
Yeah,
Me and when now I've always carried the burden of responsibility for the whole world on my shoulders. I always feel like I got to be out there fixing problems and making. But then once I had kids, it just went into overdrive. You're not just a parent to your kids, you're a parent to the world. You feel responsible for everybody and everything. And
yeah.
it's a motivator. Um, and I felt responsible for everything going on everywhere and driven to make it better. And I know you already do that. Now, once you have a kid, let me tell you, that's going to go into overdrive. So, what are you expecting as a dad? How do you think it's going to change your comedy? How do you think it's going to change your approach?
I think one of the things that's going to change, and this isn't for my comedy or my approach. One of the things that's already started to change is I am less annoyed by kids in public because I'm already starting to feel more sympathetic to the parents. And I mean, and that happened, like that happened when I got a dog for the first time too, where I was just like, instantly, I was just like, oh, let me learn more about your dog instead of like, keep it away from me. Because I started understanding what it's like to care for another living thing and to have an affinity. I think in terms of how it's going to change my comedy, my current set, I'm talking about the transition from someone who thought he was never going to have children to someone who is, who actively made the decision to do so. And so certainly there are topics I'm going to talk about that are different. I don't think I'm ever just going to be like, here's a set about the silly thing my kid did, because that joke has been done 1,000 times. I, in terms of my approach to the world, it's, I think I'm going to be more tired. I'm going to be just physically exhausted. But I get what you're saying about the idea of it going into overdrive and the idea of caring to a whole new level. Like, I'm going to start caring about things I never cared about before. I'm going to start care. I live in Charlotte. I'm going to start caring about the education system in Mecklenburg. Like, I'm going to start caring about that stuff. And yeah, I always thought education was important on a macro level, but I'm going to start drilling into that more. I might go to school board meetings, heaven forbid. Like, I mean, there are things that are going to be different in terms of my priorities.
Well, good luck with that. But, it's so hard, you hear kids crying. Once you have kids, you have them for a bit, you hear a kid crying outside, something like that. You're more sympathetic to the parents, but it's also like, "Oh, what's wrong with the kid?" Your little heart goes, "Woo," like that, right? So
Yeah.
you go from not having kids and, you hear kids screaming or crying, and you're like, "Ugh, that's annoying." But then when you have kids, you hear that and you're like, "Oh, that breaks my heart." So it's either way, it hits you in some sense, but it just changes. It seems to change from annoyance to empathy, and not
By the
real empathy where it affects you emotionally to have other kids cry. It's a real journey, dude.
By the way, I saw people are commenting and everything.
Oh,
Appreciate you guys participating. I do want to address one specific comment because I find it funny. Papa Brad protest said, "Start doing cardio now so you can keep up with the running and catch the kids as they dap off." Two things. One, I'm 6'4". I'm gonna have years before these kids can run away.
no, you're not.
Uh,
It's like 8 months, and you're like, "How did he learn to run so fast?" Kids don't walk.
before they
These
even
kids don't
walk.
learn to walk. Kids learn to run. They go from crawling to running. There's no intermediate step. There's no such thing as learning to walk. I
All
can
right.
tell you stories.
Well, my second point is that, I'm 46 right now. So unfortunately, by the time they learn to really run, I got no shot anyway. So it's fine.
Uh,
They're gonna go, they're gonna do their thing. That's all I can do.
I was 45 when I had my first kid, and I'm 56 now. And so I had one at 45 and another one at 48. And this is one fantastic thing about it. And I know we're really getting off topic here, but one fantastic thing about having kids older is you feel like you really lived a lifetime, right? You don't feel like you're giving up anything. You feel like you're just
Yeah.
a layer on that cake, which is fantastic. The last 11 years have just been just just unbelievably wonderful for just having kids. I'm just really lucky and blessed to have good healthy kids, and I think about that every day. And I don't feel like I've given up anything, and I think you're really fortunate to be able to find such a wonderful woman in Savannah, and to
Thank
have
you.
kids at this later stage, because you've really developed a lot of things that a lot of understanding about parenting intuitively, that you didn't have early on in your early 20s, or people just trying to navigate their own lives, right? So you've really built a life already, and so you've got a great foundation, a couple layers on that cake already, and these kids are just poof, there's icing on that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Last question. I always ask the same last question, and that is, what question did I not ask? What else needs to be said? What have I not asked you that you just want to get off your chest about censorship, comedy, the current state of politics, anything you want to talk about?
I think what we're doing right now is very important and something the left needs to do more of, which is collaboration.
Mhm.
And there are so many people on the right who seem to get that if you can build this kind of, network of people that you can speak with, then that amplifies the message for everybody. And it takes someone who is a, struggling creator and turns them into a force for change. And that is something we need to be better at. And, you saw it recently with the whole controversy about, or manufactured controversy about Chorus, about like, I can't believe these left wing creators are getting paid for their content. It's like, yeah, that's how they can do it full time. That's good. It's a good thing. And
Mhm.
so I think that more of us need to stop splitting hairs over our minor differences and just work together to get the overall message of progress across.
Yeah, that's always been the bane of the left, is that there are a lot of issues, and people tend to focus on a specific issue, and often in conflict with another issue that is also on the left. The Democrats eat the right,
Yeah.
whereas is far more united in a certain targeted. I don't want to say extremist because a lot of people on the right are not extremist. But they're really good at unifying over a couple of basic concepts, whereas the left is really good at dividing themselves over a couple of basic concepts.
Yeah, we tend to form circular firing squads, and I believe that if you agree with me on 99 out of 100 issues, that means we agree. And there are some people on the left that think if you disagree on one issue, that means you disagree. And that's not the way it works at all. There
Mhm.
is no one in the world. I don't agree with myself on everything. Like there are times when I'm like, I'm wrong now. And the idea that you think another creator will agree with you on everything or another politician will agree with you on everything is absolutely ridiculous. I was in a creator group when Twitter was still fun, before it became this weird hellscape. Um, I was in a creator group and it seemed like every little thing was a disagreement or an argument. And one day I finally had kind of enough of it. It was when Trump got COVID. And a lot of us wanted to keep talking about it. And there were people in the group being like, because some people here had family and friends that died of COVID, this isn't something we should talk about. And it's like, but everyone in the world knows someone who had it and died or got very sick. Why? And so I kind of splintered off and I created this group of just comedians and comedy writers. And wouldn't you know it, in the year and a half or so that we existed before we finally were like, hey, Twitter is starting to suck, we didn't have one argument. We didn't have one disagreement, like other than, hey, here's the thought I had on this and blah, blah, blah. Because I think when it comes down to it, if you are progressive and have a sense of humor, that is a good combination to understand that not everyone is going to go with you on everything, and that's okay.
Mhm.
And that's what we need more of.
Now, that's a certain subset. Comedy writers are a very specific subset. When you get into a comedy room, I've written for with a lot of different comedy groups. There is a hinge of vulnerability. It's important to be able to be vulnerable in a comedy group because you have to be able to air things. You have to be able to work out your ideas. And they're not, and if you're not in a safe space, if you don't feel like you're working with people that are okay with being vulnerable, if everyone is not okay with being vulnerable, then the people who are not okay with being vulnerable, that isn't just about their ideas, it's about your ideas too. That the ego comes into play and that really
Yeah.
kind of whole thing tumbling down. So that's a specific thing with specifically with seasoned comedy writers who have been in comedy rooms and know you got to be able to be vulnerable and you got to respect other people's vulnerabilities and let people color outside the lines a bit, build outside the sandbox. And you're like, no, let's get that sand back in there. I love where you're going. I love the idea, but that's not working. Let's scrape that back in there, right? And I had to leave one satire publication because it got very uncomfortable. There was the room for discussion and dissent was shrinking and shrinking. People were afraid to be vulnerable. How do you see that as someone who works with other comedians? The difference between working with seasoned comedians or beginner comedians, the vulnerability, where the ego comes into play, that kind of stuff. I know you just kind of already talked about that, but do you have any further thoughts on that specific stuff?
Yeah,
Comedy?
I think that there's a natural, thinning of the herd that happens. And just because, if people can't take it, can't speak the language, can't hang, they'll eventually quit. And that's why a more seasoned comedian is more likely to understand that vulnerability. But I think it can be true for anyone, whether they are a professional comedian or just some random person that has a sense of humor. I think a sense of humor makes it easier to understand that not everyone is going to go with you on everything. And it's okay. And something I've said on these lives before is, politicians aren't a life partner, they're a public transit. And you take the bus that gets you closest to your destination. You don't have to go door to door. And I think that that's true not just with groups of comedians, but it can be true with groups of friends as well. You have to assume if someone is progressive on most issues, if they get one wrong, well, then that's a teachable moment. or it means they're working through it, or it means you could be wrong. And that's all okay.
Yeah.
Not everyone has to agree on everything. We are all trying to be the best allies we can be, and we're learning as we go. And when someone screws something up, if you immediately say, get the hell out of here, well, that's the ingredient for making a MAGA. So we need to be kinder and more compassionate to others, especially because so much of being progressive is about expecting people to be compassionate to folks. So if you are asking people to be compassionate to the trans community and to gay people and to the Latino community that's being targeted right now, if you're expecting compassion to all these different communities, you have to give compassion to the people who are trying to be allies.
Hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. And a lot of times you have the same thought process, but you're taking it from different angles.
Mhm.
Um, so you do have to work through those things to better everyone and to better the product, to better what you're putting out there, right? Okay, that's a great way. It sounds to me like you're ready for fatherhood and have nothing else to learn, Steve. Congratulations, good for you. So yeah, awesome. That's a great ways to wrap it up. Everybody, you can follow Steve pretty much everywhere, not only online, but if you see him on the street, just start following him. He loves that. Steve, plug, let's end up with the plugs, the gratuitous plugs. Steve, tell us where people can follow you, what you want them to do.
Just at Steve Hofstetter on just about everything. Later today on Facebook, I'll be passing 1 million followers, and I'm very excited about it. That is larger than the population of almost every U.S. city, which is crazy. I think it would put me on the 12th if I was a U.S. city. Although I have a feeling that my city would vote better than a lot of these. But yeah, check me
Worry
out
about
at Steve.
I I I,
What'd you
since-
say?
I worry about your infrastructure, your physical infrastructure.
Yeah.
To
Here's the crazy part.
I mean,
Um,
look at you. You're a disaster.
my city has a very low crime rate. So it's just at Steve Hofstetter on pretty much everything. I'm touring right now. I'm in New Jersey and New York this week, going over to Connecticut, Rhode Island, Delaware, and Virginia. And, I just have everything on my website, and this is my Substack also. And for my Substack people that came through here, please follow Chris, not just Best of Sub, but also what's your link for communication breakdown?
Cannon Writer, my last name, CannonWriter, Cannon Writer Substack. And then also, like I said, Best of Sub, not Best of Substack, Best of Sub. Follow those. Help. Get out. Gotta unite
Abs-
together.
Absolutely. And yeah, and thanks for it's
John
all
Roan for joining us at the very end of the conversation. Good on you.
yeah. Anytime you can get here as we're saying goodbye,
Mm-hmm.
that is comedic timing, actually.
It
So
is.
well done.
The hearts are I'm on the bottom of the screen and you're at the top. I don't know if everyone sees the same way, but the little hearts have been popping up the whole time. And I'm like, oh, they're only popping up for me. They're not popping up on Steve's thing. Just mine. Everyone loves me. No one loves Steve.
Yeah, they end by the time they get to me. They're like, no, 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 we're cutting it off
Whoa,
halfway
whoa, whoa.
through.
They shrink and die and fall off the screen.
I've had that happen. I've had that happen in real life. Um, just hearts shrinking and dying through my past. Anyway, thank you, Chris. It's always good to hang with you. I think this is the first time we did it in public with viewers, but
Got
it's
through it.
great. Yeah, it's great to catch up, especially now that you've escaped into a country that values democracy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, good to see you, and thanks everybody for joining. I love these Substack lives because people are so amazingly supportive. This is such a great community, and I hope it stays this way. I hope that none of these idiots end up infiltrating Substack like this because so far it's been great.
All right. Yeah, we got him. All right. Thanks. Follow Steve Hofstetter. Follow Best of Sub. And we'll see you on the nets.
All right, goodbye.
Bye.